Good day. I am Abigail Gamasa and I am the reporter of Falsification Theory, Science as a Social Endeavor, and lastly, Science and Results. So, what is falsification theory? So, proposed by Karl Popper, is a way of demarcating science from non-science. It suggests that for a theory to be considered scientific, it must be able to be tested and conceivably proven false. For example, the hypothesis that all swans are white can be falsified by observing a black swan. Observing a black swan. So perhaps the current prevalent methodology in science, falsification theory asserts that as long as ideology is not proven to be false and can be best explained a phenomenon over alternative theories. So we should accept the said ideology. Due to its hospitable character, the shift to this theory allowed emergence of theories otherwise rejected by verification theory. It does not promote ultimate adoption of one theory but instead encourages research in order to determine which among the theories can stand the test of falsification. So the strongest one is that which is able to remain upheld amidst various tests. So while being able to make particularly risky predictions about the world, Karl Popper is the known proponent of this view. He was notorious for stating that up and coming theories of the time, such as Mach's theory of social history and Sigmund Freud's psychoanalysis, are not testable and thus not falsifiable, and subsequently questioning their status as scientific. Albeit majority of scientists nowadays are more inclined to be Popperian in their beliefs. So this theory, similar to the theory above, presents certain danger by interpreting and otherwise independent evidence in light of their pet theory. To illustrate, previous story is restated. So Ian is generally everybody's friend. He is liked to be around people and generally aspires to become everybody's friend. However, there is this one girl, Leia, who seems to not like him when he is around. Every time he waves at her, she turns away, and when they are in the same room, she avoids his glances. Through this, he concluded that Leia does not like him and does his best to show her that he is not a threat. He began greeting her whenever they passed by each other at the corridor, even going so far as calling her attention when he was in the jeepney and saw her walking past. So when they are able to talk to each other, he found out that Leia is just really shy and is not accustomed to people greeting her. He then was able to conclude that his initial impression of her not liking him as a person is wrong and thus said proposition is rejected. So although there is no happy ending yet for Leah and Ian, we can thus see how in this case So falsification method is prone to the same generalizations committed by the verification method. There is no known rule as to the number of instances that a theory is rejected or falsified in order for it to be set aside. Similarly, there is no assurance that observable events or evidences are indeed manifestation of a certain concept or theories. Thus, even though theoretically falsification method is more accepted, so scientists are still not convinced that it should be regarded as what makes a discipline scientific. So science as a social endeavor. So what is that? It means science as a social endeavor means the application of science to figuring out how the world works, exists, originated, etc. Another dimension of science as a social endeavor is to solve various problems. So, mauna siya, to solve various problems, satisfy various needs and sustainable development of society with the help of scientific knowledge. So, due to inclusiveness of the methodologies previously cited, a new school of thought on the proper demarcation criterion of science emerged. Several philosophers such as Paul Tangard, Emery Lakatos, Helen Longino, and David Bloor, and lastly Richard Rorty, among others, presented an alternative demarcation that explores the social dimension of science and effectively technology. Science ceased to belong solely to gown-wearing, bespectacled scientists and laboratories. The new view perpetuates a dimension which generally benefits the society. So for instance, far off places in South America where many of the tribes remain unconducted do not regard Western science as their science. Whatever their science is, it can be ascertained that it is no way inferior to that of globalized people's science. Thus, it presents an alternative notion that goes beyond the boundaries of cold, hard facts of sciences and instead projects in it in a different light, such as manifestation of shared experience, forging solidarity over communities. Lastly, the science and result. So what is science and result? Result means the ending of a scientific story. A scientific experiment has a beginning and an end. The result is simply the end of the scientific experiment, what you found in your study. For the most part, people who do not understand science or won over when the discipline is able to produce results, similar to when Jesus performed miracles and garnered followers. People are sold over the capacity of science to do stuff they cannot fully comprehend. In this particular argument, however, science is not the only discipline which is able to produce results. Religion, luck, and human randomness are some of its contemporaries in the field. For some communities without access to science, they can turn to divination and superstition and still get the same result. So science is not entirely foolproof, such that it is correct 100% of the time. Weather reports, for one, illustrate fallibility and limitations of their scope, as well as their inability to predict disasters. The best that can be done during an upcoming disaster in the reinforced materials to be more calamity-proof and restore the area upon impact. It can be then concluded that science does not monopolize the claim for definite results.